I am sorry. Give me 1 second.
Nielsen, this is Laura. Do you want me to call roll?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
Chian Feng,
Here.
Brett Gladstone, he will be late. Pascal Gutierrez, Sylvia Kwan, say that she's present. Ebony Lewis,
Here.
you. Ron Jones,
Present.
Robert Pearman,
Here.
Neil Cesarano,
Here.
here, and Sunny Ward. Okay, so there's 6 members present. There is a quorum.
Okay. We have, so I just want to make sure that Sunny Wood is not in.
All members are expected, but Sunny has not joined yet, and neither has Pascal, who's having technical difficulties. Brett had a conflict, so he will be joining late.
Okay, we have a exact 6. Okay. So our before we start the agenda, just a few announcements to make. That this meeting, pursuant to the provision of Governor Newsom's Executive Order N 2920, dated March 17th, 2020, a physical meeting location is not being provided. Are you okay to hearing me? Looks like some echoing going on. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce a new member who practiced in San Francisco, nearby here, and was appointed by Governor in June, and his name is Ron Jones. We want to wave a hand to welcome him. And I also want to announce that a member from LATC is joining us as well. It's John Lechinsky, and welcome, John. So again, as a routine reminder, all motions has to be seconded and repeated for the record, and motions will be taken in roll call. Okay. So with that said, our agenda start with asking DCA's director, Carrie Holmes, give us an update of the department's affairs. Is Carrie here?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Hi, Carrie.
Okay. Good morning, board president and board members. I'm Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to introduce myself and provide a department update to your board. A special welcome to your new member, Ron Jones. I was appointed by Governor Newsom to serve as the Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations beginning in June as well. I most recently came from the Senate, where I was Legislative Director for Senator Jim Bell. Before my time in the legislature, I served at the Secretary of State's office as Assistant Deputy. I've always been passionate about consumer protection, and I'm very happy to be here at DCA working with the boards and bureaus. I'm part of a new leadership team, as you know. In January, Governor Newsom appointed Lourdes Castro Ramirez as the new Secretary of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, effective March 2nd. Governor Newsom also appointed Jennifer Simoes as DCA's Deputy Director of Legislation and Megan Allred as Assistant Deputy Director of Legislation. Finally, on April 16th, Christine Lally was appointed by Governor Newsom as the Chief Deputy Director of DCA, and she joined us in July. Now that Director Kirkmeyer has her team in place, she can devote more time to her top priorities. I'm happy to report that in July, the DCA Budget Office and Office of Information Services launched 4 new budget expenditure and revenue reports utilizing fiscal information. The reports are fast, detailed, and easy to generate. The 4 new reports can be produced using DCA's Quality Business Interactive Reporting Tool, or QBERT. These fast, accurate reports with clean data will aid board staff in providing budget reports to board members in the meeting packets. DCA is very pleased to be providing these reports and is working on 3 more budget reports in the future. Another DCA priority is regulations, improving timelines and transparency. DCA's regulations unit was created by DCA Legal to directly assist boards and bureaus with regulations packages. The department also developed an online system to manage and track regulations and streamline their review called ShareWell. The ShareWell testing with a pilot cohort is now complete, and there will be regular check-ins with the pilot groups to solicit feedback and determine the next stages of the rollout. Our work continues even though COVID-19 has changed the way we do business now and in the future. DCA temporarily closed all offices to the public in March in response to state and local stay-at-home orders to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. DCA and the boards and bureaus have implemented telework plans and have required physical distancing for employees who cannot telework. Offices reopened to the public on June 15th with preventative measures to safeguard the health and safety of employees and visitors. I know this time has been challenging for everyone, and we are truly grateful to you for your service and to staff for being so flexible. One of the few upsides to staying at home is the opportunity to expand online and remote learning. I want to invite you to participate in DCA's board member orientation, which is now being offered as 2 half-day sessions on October 21st and 28th. I encourage you to register on DCA's board member resources page. I look forward to getting to know you better and to the day we can meet in person. In the meantime, if you have any questions or need anything from DCA, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd like to thank you for having me here today and for your commitment to the work you do. That concludes my presentation. I'll hand it back over to Board President.
Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for the update. We're so glad that all these critical positions are filled, and we're looking forward to the leadership that the department provides. And you're welcome to stay. Oh, by the way, any members, any questions? Well, I let Carrie leave.
It looks like Ron has a question.
Okay. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you, Board President James. I wasn't sure if it's appropriate, but I would like to make an opening comment if the time is appropriate. So I just wanted to basically say I want to thank Governor Newsom for his vote of confidence in me and the opportunity to serve the board. And I look forward to working with the distinguished members of this body as we serve the public interest. I also wanted to thank Executive Officer Rose and her staff for their patience and guidance as they guided me through the administrative process. And lastly, I'd like to thank the President King, Pat, and members of the board for taking time to introduce me to some of the nuances associated with the roles and responsibilities that need to be discussed today. I look forward to working with each of you in the coming days tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron, for the gracious remark. It looks like nothing particular for Carrie. Carrie, you're welcome to stay, but I know you're very busy, and thank you again for giving us that update. Okay.
Thank you. I will stay, but I'll turn off my video.
Okay. Thank you.
And welcome, Ron. I look forward to meeting you, Ron, soon, I hope.
Thank you very much. Likewise.
Okay. Here we want to open the meeting to, I hear echoings. Maybe if you're not speaking, you may have to mute your microphone. So here I'd like to open the meeting to any public members who wish to make a remark to the meeting.
This is the moderator, and thank you, Mr. Board President. I will go ahead and open up the question and answer panel. So if you would like to make a public comment, please type, I would like to make a comment, and submit it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment to access this feature. This is the moderator, and we have a member of the public who's identified herself as Denise Campos who would like to make a remark. So Denise, I will let you know when you are unmuted. And Denise, you've been unmuted. And if you could try to keep it at 2 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I am trying to figure this out. Give me 1 second. Okay. Hello, board members. I hope that you, your families, and friends are doing well. When you are serving during your grace period, you don't know when your last meeting will be. So I wanted to take this opportunity to officially say goodbye, as my last meeting was in June. I'd like to thank former Senator Pro Tem Daryl Steinberg for me to the State Architects Board in 2014 and Speaker Anthony Rendon for reappointing me in 2018. It was my pleasure to serve on the board since 2014, to chair the Communications Committee, to push for social media and engagement on many levels for our stakeholders, to serve on the executive board, and to now engage on national architectural issues and public interest via NCARB. But most important, it was a pleasure to work alongside many of you, engaging in thoughtful conversations and gaining new perspectives, while hopefully providing common sense questions and insight on my end. I'd like to thank the top-notch staff for their professionalism and dedication to making this a really well-run department. I will miss seeing all of you 4 times a year, but look forward to being invited to dinners at Board Member Serrano's home. I wish you all the best and welcome you to keep in touch. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. You beat me by a punch. There's a line item in our agenda. We will recognize your term expired. We really appreciate your service, and so often you step in, play a key role on behalf of the board, and we all know that, and including the hiring our new executive directors. So your contribution to the board will be marked by this key event, and I want to thank you, and I want to express also my personal feelings that we will miss your presence and your participation, and we wish you good luck, Denise. It's really a pleasure to working with you.
Thank you.
Ditto, ditto. Here, here.
Any other member want to say something? As long as we don't put Denise the items on the board agenda today, you can say anything you want to.
Denise, this comes as a surprise to me as well. It sounds like to you. So I'm very, very sorry to see you go off the board, but I'm also pleased to hear that you're going to be joining NCARB. Are you joining NCARB as on the public member, or how are you participating on NCARB?
I was appointed to the Ethics Case Committee.
Excellent. That's great. Well, we'll see you at NCARB meetings and so forth, so we won't lose you completely, at least.
Yes,
you'll be
thank
at the
you.
national. Yeah, you'll be at the national stage, which is great. Look forward to seeing you there.
Any other member want to express anything? Okay, I hear again, Denise, thank you, and stay in touch.
I did want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, it's Nilsa Serrano. Denise, I have grown a deep relationship with you. You have become my friend, my confidant, and I will miss you dearly in our conversations over architect work. I am extremely excited that I still get to hang out with you because you only live a couple miles away from me. But I am going to miss you talking about all the work that needs to be done on the California Architects Board. But I love you dearly, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Is she still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Denise. So, every agenda items as a section of a public opinions, so you're welcome to stay until the meeting is adjourned. And you are more than welcome to express your opinions. Anyway, I'm half joking, half serious. I hope you have some time to stay with us. Okay. So with that said, we are going to introduce another public member here, but this one is invited as a special guest. And Bill Leddy, FAIA, represents California AIA chapter, together with Mark, I assume, will present. There's some people again. Can you make sure you turn off your microphone? Okay.
I think, John, this is Laura. Ebony has a hand up.
Ebony?
It's okay. I'm texting Denise, but I just wanted to just say bye to Denise. I'm devastated.
It's not too late. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead and say. Ebony, go ahead and say something.
Okay. I'll just turn on my video real quick. I'm calling through my phone because I'm having internet issues, but I just wanted to say goodbye to Denise. I'm so sad that she hasn't been reappointed, and I just wish you the best, and I hope to continue to see you when I come down. You were such a great guidance for me when I stepped on the board, and I really appreciate you. So thank you for everything that you've done. That's it.
Thank you, Ebony. Okay, so Bill represents AIA California board, and together with Mark, he will present to us their recent work in modernize, that's my term, that mandatory continuing education for architects to renew their license. And AIA takes the leadership on many fronts. I'm so glad that Bill and Mark has reached out to the board, and in their recent decision, their board meeting, they even spell out that they want to work with the California Architects Board in this meaningful, important subject that he's going to present. Bill, do you have the PowerPoint arranged as I suggested? Okay,
yes,
go forward.
I sent it in. Can somebody cue that up?
This is the moderator. We have it loaded, so we will switch to it in just a moment. And then as you request, we will progress the slides.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Feng and members of the California Architects Board. We're delighted to be here today to talk to you about mandatory continuing education for architects in California and the importance of ramping up zero net carbon design knowledge among the profession. As soon as this slideshow queues up, I can give you a little bit of it's going to be a really brief presentation about what we are trying to do at AIA California. I am also, I'm here on behalf of the board. I am the current chairperson of the Committee on the Environment for AIA California, and I'm also vice president for climate action on the board of directors of AIA California. There we go. Great. Next slide, please. So, you know, why is zero net carbon design, MCE, mandatory continuing education, important? Well, I think we all recognize by now that we're in the middle of an unprecedented global climate emergency, and that we believe that California is ideally positioned to not only take a leadership position locally and in the state, but also globally. Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is my town last week, a week ago on Wednesday. Pretty scary moment, and I think it reminds us all that climate emergency is all about carbon, not just the carbon that we're breathing in the air these days because of all the wildfires, but but of course the carbon dioxide and global greenhouse gases that buildings emit. I thought this quote from Governor Newsom last week was really right on the money. Our goals are inadequate to the reality we're experiencing. So I think what at AI California, what we're really interested in doing is ramping up our response to the climate emergency and doing what we can as architects and the building industry to help mitigate the impacts of the climate emergency, both locally and globally. Next, please. So I know that in California, we're doing better than most places in the rest of the world. On average, buildings pollute. They contribute over 40% of global carbon dioxide emissions. In California, we're less than that, I realize, but last time I checked, there are no border walls around California that extend all the way up into the atmosphere. So what we do here has a huge impact, I think, taking leadership in addressing some of these issues. I think there's a whole new awareness for the non-architects on the board. There's a whole new awareness now of not just the carbon emissions of building operations, trying to reduce the use of fossil fuels and go to all electric buildings, but also there's a new heightened awareness of the carbon dioxide emissions involved in creating the materials that we use for buildings. So concrete, steel, and aluminum, which are the biggest polluters, represent around 22.5% of the total global carbon emissions. So this is something that we as architects feel that we have a responsibility to address. Next, please. And time is short. We only have 10 years. I think the experts agree that the impacts of climate change are accelerating faster than all the models have predicted. We really have the decade of 2020 to 2030 to make an impact on this climate challenge. You can see here this is a chart showing the goal of trying to stay under 1.5 degrees centigrade of global temperature increase. And you can see that right now, this is from the UN, you can see right now that during this next 10 years is absolutely critical period of time to reverse that impact and try to minimize the climate emergency. Next, please. This is a quote from Rocky Mountain Institute, actually in 2019. Every building we touch over the next 10 years needs to be brought to zero emissions in a way that is both cost effective and supports decarbonization of the grid. So I think that the sense of urgency is one of the things I came here today to try to express, and the fact that we really do need to kind of rethink how we practice architecture in the state and how we help to enlist everyone to try to keep our carbon emissions reduced to a lower level. Next, please. And of course, at the same time, the regulatory landscape is rapidly changing. As we know, California, Cal Green and Title 24 are increasing every new code cycle. But at the same time, there are grassroots efforts that are rapidly accelerating. One here noted is the Building Electrification Plan, which is happening all across the state, as you probably have heard. And many cities across the state are now adopting very aggressive ordinances that require electrification, and in some cases even require banning the use of natural gas in new buildings. And then meanwhile, I think AI California is heavily promoting the Zero Code for California, which is a code that has been developed by Architecture 2030, a nonprofit that is designed to bring all buildings to zero carbon as quickly as possible before 2030, hopefully in the 2022 code cycle, as we approach this huge challenge of shifting our thinking around how buildings are built. Next, please. And I think the important thing here to note is that California has a huge opportunity here to be a global leader. Of course, we're the 5th largest economy and a center for global innovation. And I think it's a true statement to say that the nation and the world are watching how we respond to climate change and what climate action we take. So I think we have an opportunity, not just in California, not just to be leaders locally, but as I mentioned earlier, leaders globally. China and India are all waiting to find out. They don't ask what's the federal government doing about climate action. They always ask what's California doing about climate action. And so this is our chance to make a big difference in the world. Next, please. So how do we propose to do this? Mandatory continuing education and zero net carbon. I think we feel we need to prepare the profession for a rapidly changing world that we're experiencing. But of course, this is part and parcel with our primary goal of protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare at this time. Next, please. And as you all know, I'm sure that California is ranking toward the bottom of all the states, the 53 states and territories. Number 48 out of the 53 in terms of the continuing ed that we actually require of our architects. I think it's important to note that 42 of the 53 states actually require, 79% actually require 12 or more mandatory continuing ed hours per year, whereas California requires 2.5. So I believe that the profession is prepared to take this on, to take this challenge on, and to really ramp up our understanding and our abilities to meet these challenges of the global climate change and bringing buildings to zero carbon as quickly as possible. So I think this is something that we have a lot of room to work on. Next, please. So what are our goals? Real quickly, educate all architects in California about zero net carbon design. Prepare all architects to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare in this time of climate emergency. Prepare all architects for rapidly changing energy codes. Mobilize the profession to help lead statewide decarbonization. Focus first on reducing operational carbon, but then expand to resilience, which is, we have to do both. We can't just mitigate carbon. It's probably too late to make a big change, but we're going to have to do both. Mitigate carbon, at the same time, prepare communities for an uncertain future that will require us to respond to those changes. Ensure qualified instruction for all courses, and then collaborate with you folks, the California Architects Board, to make sure that this can happen as efficiently and quickly as possible. Next, please. So, we wrote this. This initiative that we're talking about here was passed resoundingly by the AI California Board now some months ago. And I think our proposal then was to say we propose 5 additional learning units per every 2-year cycle in zero net carbon. I have to say that after last week, this seems, frankly, to me personally, woefully inadequate. We need to ramp it up even faster to try to have an impact. AI California proposes to make courses free to all California architects, not just AI members, in net zero carbon design. And then AI will draw from our extensive network of experts to ensure quality course providers. Next, please. So just quickly, I'm nearing the end here. The quick presentation here on the benefits to the profession and the public. We want to make sure that architects are prepared for this uncertain future and can help lead their communities to a reduced carbon environment. We want to make sure that the California architects are equipped with all the tools to prepare for these future code cycles. We want to make sure that these courses, as I mentioned, are free, so that there's no economic burden financial burden to take these courses. And we want to make sure that we advance our state's national leadership in climate action and rapid decarbonization. And finally, I think this, with all the issue of social equity, is inextricably linked with this, that decarbonization will create new intercity jobs and actually help protect disadvantaged populations who are typically the most severely impacted by climate change. Next, please. So this is the resolution we passed in July. Work with California Architects Board to promote and obtain a requirement for architects to complete an additional 5 hours of a continuing education in building decarbonization and zero net carbon design every 2 years as a condition of license renewal beginning in the 2023 renewal cycle. Next, please. I just want to leave you with this. This is from the National AIA Climate Action Plan that was published in April. And I think it really kind of says it all, speaking about climate change and climate action and what buildings can do to help address this. One site, countless challenges, a looming deadline, 7.5 billion clients. This is the ultimate design project. This is why we're here. So thank you very much. I'll stay on if there are any questions, but I appreciate the opportunity, Chair Feng, to make this presentation, and I look forward to hopefully working with California, bringing together California Architects Board and AIA California to work on this absolutely critical and urgent matter.
Thank you, Bill, for the information. Since it is public members section, although the board is not supposed to make any actions or discussing the nature of this presentation, but board has two options, or has an option of that identify and refer this item potentially as agendas for future board meetings or board subcommittee meetings. So at this time, I personally feel, and also as an architect in California, practicing architect, the subject is dear and critical to our profession. So I will request the staff that set up an agenda on this topic. Start with a professional qualification committee, and then report to the full board, and working with AIA California to produce a meaningful, constructive, and critical continuing education modernizations for our licensure. And with that said, I encourage the members here, if you need, Bill provides more background or technical informations. It is within the scope of this public comment period. So with that said, any members interested to know more about the subject, want ask Bill or Mark on this subject?
Hi, this is Ebony. My initial question is why our continuing education requirements are so low, and if there's like some reasoning or history behind that.
Bill, you could answer, but I believe this is a more topic area that for staff to respond. We can discuss in the future meetings, but Bill, you're welcome to shed the light from your perspective.
No, I think that's really a question for the California Architects Board, and I think there's been, there's politics involved, of course. So I just wanted to point that out and kind of make sure that if the decision is made to increase continuing education requirements for the profession for licensure, I know that there will be some folks who might resist that as being an unrealistic burden. But I think the position of the AIA California Board is that we're prepared to help educate the profession as much as we can to be prepared for these challenges and to really step up the amount of education that we need to have to meet this uncertain future. So thank you.
Tian, this is Laura. If I can speak to Ebony's question. I think we have a specific requirement in one particular area that was imposed by the legislature several years ago. But while a lot of the boards have continuing education, generally, as you know, the board's licensed for a minimum level of competency. So when you impose CE requirements, you look to see whether there's a need in a specific area or a justification for imposing an additional requirement that could be viewed as a burden on licensure.
Okay. Hey, Bill, this is Sylvia.
Yeah.
I really, first of all, want to compliment you and the AIACC for putting the emphasis on this. It is much needed and it's overdue. And to your point, it may be a little too late even at this point, but it's a start. And so I wholeheartedly support the idea of taking this through the process. And I know that Laura and the staff have to figure out how to deal with it in terms of the legislating that had been done to impose the mandatory CE. So let that happen. But just so you know that I personally will wholeheartedly support you as we go through this process, and I hope we can do it speedily, Tian, because I understand that you want to take it through committee, and that's fine, but let's quickly have the committee work with AIACC, just like you suggested, and let's make a report to the very next board meeting so that we can take action on it and send it back through the process that it has to go through. And I hope, Laura, that it is not a year-long process, but that it can be enhanced motion. Because, Bill, I know people in the state of California are very forward-thinking. Even the legislators understand the criticality of this issue. So let's all kind of agree that we got to push this and not let it go through a bureaucratic morass as, lots of issues might. Okay, so just wanted to let you know that I support it. And also, would it be possible, would you be able to make this PowerPoint available to all of us so that we can share it with our constituents and our people in our offices and so forth?
Well,
Sylvia, this is Laura. I sent it out to all the members yesterday.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, that was your edition. Okay. I didn't have a chance to open that edition. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
So, Sylvia, I appreciate your remark. What you said is exactly has been planned by staff. We have all the key events lined up already. We want to have this action quickly. And I urge other members, if you're not currently PQC committee, if you have the time, sign on as a public member, voice your opinion. PQC in the past few years has working on this diligently, has arrived under the leadership of the chair, Pascal Pierce. And I think we are really close to moving towards some of the recommendations the board can vote on.
Can you remind everybody the date of the next meeting?
October 30th.
Okay, so everybody put that on your calendar. If we can all attend, we should.
Can I ask one question just for clarification to the presenter? I noticed that the suggestion was that, first let me say that I completely support the idea, and I appreciate the level of investment that the AIA is making in this effort. But I noticed that I suggested that the AIA would provide sports work at no additional charge. Is that for all licensees or just for members of the
No, I think I tried to make clear that our objective is to provide free courses to all architects in the state, not just AIA members.
John, this is Laura. It looks like we have a member of the public that would like to comment as well. So at that opportunity, if you can just
Okay.
public comment.
Okay. I also see Ebony's hand raised. Yeah. Oh, and Pascal. So how do we do this? Let's call for the member of the public's comment first. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. This is the moderator, and just a friendly reminder to meeting participants. If you're not currently talking, please mute your microphone. That means it'll be red, and that'll help reduce feedback and echo that we're hearing. And I have now opened up the Q&A panel. So if you are a member of the public and would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," and submit it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And just for future reference, if you can go ahead and click on your hand to lower it. We do not typically call on members of the public when they raise their hand because we ask for public comment at the board's request. Thank you so much. And again, this is a moderator. If you would like to make a public comment, please indicate that by typing, "I would like to make a public comment" in the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all participants. If you're not seeing the Q&A panel, click on the question mark within a square in the bottom right corner of your screen. This is a moderator, and an individual identified as Deborah Jarrett has indicated she'd like to make a comment. So Deborah, I'll unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. All right, Deborah, you've been unmuted.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Deborah Gerard. I'm a licensed architect, and I am also the president of AIA California. And I just wanted to further support what Bill has presented to you, and I appreciate the supportive comments. Our goal is really to help architects be prepared for when the codes change. And so we think that this is beneficial to architects and not an undue burden. And in terms of the comment about an impediment to licensure, it is also one of our goals to really help people with licensure. We find that new licensees are very, very interested in climate action and learning all they can about it. And so we think this is actually making relevance to licensure as opposed to an impediment. But it is also our goal to make sure that we are supporting new licensees and encouraging people to get licensed, and that this is really a part of helping them be great architects and support the health, welfare, and public safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah.
All right.
Any other comment?
No, not at this time. So would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please, moderator.
Okay, I will do so. And members of the public, you can lower your hand by clicking on the hand icon a second time.
So I see John Wachinski has his hand raised. John, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quickly in the comments section, my send function is not working, so I don't know if anybody else is having that same difficulty, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thanks.
This is the moderator, and so if you are a panelist, the comment feature is not enabled, so that is just for members of the public to indicate they'd like to talk.
Okay, thank you for all who made a comment, who responded to this topic. Thank you again, Bill, for your leadership and AIA's support, Deborah. And we are definitely in the first, lane, and California Architects Board will take action in our future meetings on the subject.
This is Laura. It looks like Pascal has his hand raised, and I think Robert also wanted to speak.
Okay. Pascal, I'm sorry, I must have missed your hand. Go ahead, Pascal.
Want me to go? Oh, okay. At the time, the board had conducted several practice analysis over the years that did not demonstrate there was an educated architects. So that's why
Is he breaking up?
legislature took action with some.
Yeah, definitely, he's breaking up. Moderator might be able to verify this.
The legislature.
This is the moderator. Pasquale, you might want to
Can I go?
call in for your audio
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, I had to do the same, Pascal. I called in, and apparently I'm clear, right? I'm pretty clear. So you may want to call in. There's an option
Okay.
on the right, those three dots again. And under the three dots, you can change. Let's see, let me look at it. So it's more options. You go to switch audio, and then you can say, at the bottom, it'll say call in, and then it'll give you directions. There you go. Yeah, there it is right there.
Sharon, let me briefly ask my question while we're waiting for him to hook up, if that's okay.
Please, Robert.
I know we've talked about the MCLE requirements and the disability requirement and whether that's should be increased or modified or gotten rid of or added to. Is that just something that's in the ether that we're not really focusing on, or is that something your committee is still actively considering?
That was, the committee had off and on 3 meetings on the subject, and the committee was planning on formulate some recommendations that the board can take action. Options includes increase as a selective and or increase as a mandatory, and all these are on the table.
Okay, so I just bring that up to say that as you consider this new one, at least think about how it ties into that other effort and it can be sort of coordinated.
The current board's work, the committee's work, including the subject line is very in line with this, but not specifically the term of net zero design.
And just to be clear, AI California is very supportive of the existing ADA continuing education requirements. We're not questioning that. We're just simply wanting to add additional requirements.
How are you doing with Pascal?
This is the moderator, and it looks like Pasquale does have a phone connection now. So Pasquale, do you want to test your microphone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better. Wonderful. Thank you.
Terrific. All righty. So let me rewind a little bit. The reason, basically, at one point in time here in the early 2000s, the California Architects Board did not have any continuing education requirements at all, because a series of practice analysis demonstrated that continuing education for the California architect was not being driven by any lack of, let's call it, specialty or knowledge to serve the consumer in the proper way. So there was really no defensible information that would warrant providing any kind of continuing education. Then a group of attorneys and some folks got together and they brought forth the requirement for the accessibility requirements, which went through the legislature, went through the process, and we wound up with 5 hours of continuing education on accessibility for every renewal cycle. So that's where we're at. That's why we are where we're at. Over the last couple of years, the PQ committee has been working to revisit the continuing education requirements for California architects. The committee has arrived at a position where we are on the threshold of making recommendations on what and how many continuing education requirements should be put in place through the legislature for approval to modify the current mandatory CEUs that we have now. We looked at a couple of possibilities to have this defensible information that would warrant the continuing education. And we have a CAB occupational analysis that's currently in process, and it's due December 2020. Although the questions were complete and had lots of good content, don't know that that analysis was going to provide the committee with any suggestions or ideas about what types of continuing education that should be put in place. NCARB is conducting analysis of practice, which is due in the spring of 2021. Now, we could see that serving as a foundational evidence to support revisions proposed to the mandatory continuing education, because they advertise that the results of that survey should put light on the evolving practice of architecture and assist developing programs and initiatives to ensure that regulation aligns with the realities of practice over the next several years. So there's a timeline that we're looking at to have defensible information that would warrant proposing modification to the CEUs. You can see that timeline is out there a little bit before that information is in front of the committee. That is not to say that moving forward with the net zero carbon initiative that we heard about today from AIA could not move forward just as an offer and an education tool. It doesn't have to be mandatory, but it could, become something that is available for architects. We all understand, I think, and need that something needs to be done. So, having said all of that, I would think it was earlier suggested by Tian that perhaps the California Architects Board and the AIA work together to blend the timeline and content of proposed continuing education requirements that would benefit getting approval by the legislature. I think that's kind of our next step, and I think that's where we should go. So,
thank you, Pascal. That's exactly what the information that we are going to get to the board to the vote, and it's a very, very nice a recap of our work in the past few years. So I hope the bill that you on the other end you hear that the board has been interested in the subject, has been working on this for a while. So it is not a foreign subject, and could expect that we will reach out again. And thank you again for presenting.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting.
I have about 8 questions that I will channel through you and Laura to get to the AIA so that they can kind of look at that and create some responses for us when we do get together with the PQ.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, everyone. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye. Now we are on the agenda number anchoring again. Number 8, and to review our last board meeting minutes and take action of it.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Did I lose people?
No, I ask you to make a roll call and vote on it.
You. Okay. Tian Feng?
Aye.
This is Tara. Can we pause the roll call and look for public comment
Oh,
first?
public comment. So, yes. Please.
This is the moderator, and thank you, Mr. Board President. I will open up the Q&A panel. All right, so if any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator, and Mr. Board President, I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. There is a hand up by John Berneski. Does he want to make a comment?
Oh, John, you forgot your hand, or you want to say something? Oh, you forgot to lower your hand.
Yeah, I forgot to lower it. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Tian Feng?
Aye.
Neil Cicerano, aye. Malcolm Brett Gladstone?
Brett?
Brett?
He doesn't appear to be online.
Okay, great. Pascual Gutierrez?
Pascual has to unmute.
I am here.
Can you vote?
No, we're voting on the minutes.
Pascual, was that a yes?
Oh, wow.
Ronald?
Can we do a raise the hand? No.
Pascual, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ronald Jones?
Aye.
Sylvia Kwan?
Aye.
Ebony Lewis?
Aye.
Robert Perman?
Aye.
Charles Ward?
Aye.
Nielsa, this is Laura. It looks like Brett rejoined if you want to check and see if you'd like to add on.
Okay, Malcolm Brett Gladstone, is that a yes for the minutes?
This is the moderator. I can, oh, there he goes. There's his audio.
Brett, was that a yes?
You have to unmute, Brett.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, that's a yes to that vote.
Thank you.
I've been having trouble hearing most of this, by the way.
Okay, so motion passed. We are now moving to the agenda item H, which is update and possible actions on legislation regarding two bills. I'd like to ask
Excuse me. Did I just vote on the minutes of the meeting?
you voted on the minutes of a meeting.
I did. Sorry, I wasn't. The speakers aren't very good here. On the minutes of the meeting, I wanted to ask a question. I noticed that during the discussion of the diversity committee that we were putting together, it said that the diversity committee update, I think, would be on each agenda after the decision last time to put it on the agenda. And I didn't see it on this agenda, and I just wanted to make a note of that and wonder if if that was deliberate.
Brett, this is Laura. I think that the idea was to have an update on all NCARB committee meetings on the future agendas, and that is agenda item I. So the diversity issue could be covered there, as well as in the next item G from the executive committee meeting.
Okay, excuse me. I thought it was the committee we were going to set up. I must have misread it. Thank you. With that question answered, I vote yes on the minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Laura will give a presentation about the possible actions on some of the legislations on 2 bills. Laura?
Tian, do you first want to go back to item G? I think we skipped over the executive committee meeting update.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Laura and I will give, and also Nilsa, Sylvia, that you're welcome chime in, and just we want a quick report on after last board meeting that the board instructed executive committee to looking at the diversity issues and reach out to the NCARB if necessary. Yes, we have done that. It was a well-attended meeting with the president of NCARB, the chief executive of NCARB, and the lead staff on the issues of diversity. We had an engaging conversation, and we have interesting, I call them digressions. Actually, we learned the aspects that some of the staff from NCARB may also interested into some potential changes or provisions or thought process in promoting diversity. So with that said, Laura, you may want give a quick summary from your note. And for example, CEO Armstrong was, always each time he refers to NCARB is the assembly of all jurisdictions and largely influenced by the composition of the representative from each jurisdiction. So therefore, they are on the receiving end of diversity. Some kind of explanations on that front. So, or you want to go say something, or you want me to continue to?
Sure, I can, give some brief comments, and I think maybe Sylvia and Nielsa might want to speak up as well. I thought it was a very good discussion. We had the president of NCARB, Bob Calvani, the CEO, Mike Armstrong, and then the first vice president, president-elect, Alfred Vitadari, participate, as well as NCARB staff. And it was a really good discussion. I think they acknowledged that there is a need for some structural changes, but they would like to see it come up through the membership of NCARB. So I think that's part of what the diversity committee will be looking at. I think they're open to changes to the board, the governance structure of the board of directors to see. They acknowledge it takes a long time to work your way up through the existing structure, and that can discourage some people and make it difficult for change. Also talked about the structure of NCARB itself with the regions, and that could potentially be making it difficult to get some of this change through. And they're open to looking at changes of that as well. But Sylvia might want to speak a little bit more about what the diversity committee is looking at in this issue as well.
Right. One of the ideas is to expand the board itself. So instead of having, well, there's two things. One is to expand the board by opening it to, for example, the two areas that we talked about was one, to someone, a member, let's say a president, sitting president or upcoming president for NOMA. The second the second opening would be for a young architect, somebody that's been licensed 10 years or less, which is the criteria that AIA uses to call them young. And so those two spots, if they were to be opened at beyond the current number of seats on the board, then that would automatically create a voice of diversity. The second aspect of that is they're now questioning whether they need this second, I think they call them this first vice president and then there's a second vice president. And so they are now thinking of possibly eliminating the second vice president in order to speed up the process of getting from, being a member at large to somehow getting on the board. And then you only have to spend 1 year as a first vice president, and then you become the president. So it takes a year off. It's not a huge help, but it's somewhat helpful. And so those are the two major areas that have been discussed. I don't know if anybody else remembers anything beyond those two items.
Hi, this is Neil Pastrana. My one takeaway from the meeting, because we've had two since then, at the diversity committee meeting, there is definitely pushback from some of the leadership to have the faster pace of leadership move up, and claiming that it's a long process, that there's a big learning curve, and that they wouldn't be able to, that most architects wouldn't be able to learn how to function in that environment that quickly. But I think we in California kind of pushed back on that architects, I feel, and I've learned, that are definitely fast, out of the box thinkers, and they could pick up things quickly. So we'll see if that resonated, but that was my takeaway. Thank you.
Sylvia, this is Laura. Was there also a discussion about potentially combining the secretary and treasurer positions to eliminate 1 more year in the past to leadership?
Yeah, you're actually right about that. So that could potentially cut 2 years, and that would be substantial. That would start to help. So there was a further discussion about the fact that there was someone who was not directly on the chain of command, if you will, who ran from our region. We're known as Region 6, right? Which is basically the West Coast. And one of our members ran sort of almost at large, and she was not successful because they based that argument of her not being successful due to lack of experience. So you're right, Milza, the lack of experience is a kind of a big deal argument right now. And I think if we're going to assist and help them get over that plot, we may have to be a little more aggressive and just, like you were saying, how we're fast learners. And by the time we get to a position on that national board, you've already spent years on your state board, as well as lots of committees. And so I would not necessarily use that. I don't think that's a very good argument. Let me put it that way. So we need to push on that.
The CEO Armstrong was brave enough in front of the other board members of presidents, saying this almost can be seen as you're looking for thought leaders, or you're looking for experienced leaders. So I remember that conversation was very interesting. You have to really climb the ladders step by step, go to the national leadership, or your ideas should be the most important. So that is a very promising observation from the CEO of the organization. I think the conversation at least lead to, first of all, the exposure is great. The president-elect, and then the CEOs and the lead staff is all aware that California is big on this. California wants to see an influence at the national stage. I think CEO Armstrong had mentioned they have that potential already, because few members of our board, Sylvia, Milta, and Denise, are assigned or engaged in these committees, has a direct influence on that issue. So that's good. Compared with other states, I think our presence is stronger. Any member has any questions on this? We move on.
It looks like Sunny has a question.
Bob Perrin, I have one question. Since this is the executive committee section, and I thought the executive committee was the president, vice president, and secretary, and I thought Denise was vice president. If so, what's the succession plan there?
Would Ken appoint, or would you move Nielsa up to, what is the process? Good question.
Yeah. So maybe it's a good time to mention about it. I begin the conversation with Laura. We have one more meeting to go. And then between this meeting and the next meeting, we also need to form election committee to identify next year's leader. So I would think if it is by permitted, I could temporarily appoint someone as vice president or simply leave the vice president position vacant until next year. If any other members has any preference, you can actually speak up now. So because we don't have much of a time, after this meeting, I will set these dates with Laura.
Okay, I would just ask that you maybe have our legal counsel review the bylaws to make sure there's no options that are already set forth that we have to follow.
This is Laura. I'm looking at the Administrative Procedure Manual, and so officer vacancies, if it becomes position, an election shall be held at the next meeting. So we didn't put it on the agenda for this meeting. So we could put it on the December agenda, but as John said, there'll be an election for new officers. So I think at this point, the position would just stay vacant, and we still have 2 positions filled. And Denise was actually on the committee and still in her grace period when we set the executive committee agenda. So she participated in the meeting as a public member, and we had her input.
Now,
Pascal, I see your hand,
yeah.
Pascal.
Yes, so you see my hand. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I think Laura just outlined it perfectly. You can go through these motions of getting a vice president in there, but the vice president only does something if the president's not there, and the secretary who calls a roll call, and Nielsa has that position out. So I think we're covered for one meeting. And besides, like Laura pointed out, you're going to have a new ballot coming out in December. So I think that we should move forward and solicit interest from board members that may want to have a leadership position in 2021 so that the nomination committee can move forward with that thinking.
Thank you, Pascal. I see Sunny. You still have your hand raised?
Yeah, I don't want to complicate the timeline though. So like if you want to talk about the executive position, we can continue that conversation, or I'd also just like a little bit more clarification about the diversity meetings. So let me know if it's a good time now, or if you want to wait a few minutes.
It's a good time, particularly on the diversity meetings. I like all the keep the conversation going.
Okay. Well, I'm not on the diversity meeting, so I'd like to just kind of. I think I got the gist of what went down, but you guys had the well-attended meeting with NCARB about diversity, but it still seems to me that the conversation is sort of stuck in their sort of process, and I just want to again point out, like, this sort of goes back to, the sort of 5th largest economy in the world. Here we are, the state of California, a member of this very sort of territorial organization at NCARB, and we're just really underrepresented. And I realized that one of the reasons for that is that we've just sort of recently, and Laura, remind me, like, I'm not even sure, like, to what extent California uses the NCARB services in relation to sort of other member states. Are we fully a sort of subscriber to their services at this point?
We don't use as many of their services as maybe some of the smaller jurisdictions. The majority use them, for instance, to qualify people to take the exam. And in California, we will qualify them and review their experience first. And there's some other services that we do on our own that we don't use NCARB for. Everyone uses them for the exam, obviously, in terms of the administration of the exam in the AXP, but there are other services that are optional.
Got it. And then just to further understand the sort of economics of how the organization works, so like a state like us that doesn't fully subscribe to all of their sort of member subscription, advocacy, all of their services, how does the economics of that work compared to a state that uses them fully?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we have the option of using more services, so there's not a discount in terms of that. It's just our choice that we're not, because we are able to do it on our own, and we've had various preferences. I can't recall offhand exactly what our dues are for NCARB. I don't know if they're the same for each jurisdiction, but I would imagine that they are. But I'd be happy to do a little bit more checking and maybe send out an email with some more details on that.
Yeah, and I guess that's my question is like, do we pay dues, or are the services sort of rendered based on the test taking and subscription services of our member architect test taking, or are there separate dues?
Each jurisdiction does pay dues, but I would think I believe the majority of NCARB's revenue comes from the test administration. So
Got it.
Yeah.
I know the amount that we pay. I know the amount that we pay. We pay $4,000 a year.
Actually, I think part of that is WestCarb, so the total is $6,500 a year.
So it's not a large amount of dues, and it's not based on the number of licensees or people with NCARB certificates or anything like that.
No.
So do we
I'll
pay
confirm though if
less
it's the same for each jurisdiction.
It's the same for each one?
That I don't know, so I'll confirm that. I think it is, but I'm not positive.
It is the same. We beat this word to death at one of the meetings that we had in NCARB. Everybody pays the same.
I'm just sort of I'm trying to get an idea for, how under or over represented we are, I guess from a financial perspective, but obviously, we're a much more diverse state, and so therefore it doesn't feel like we're, just based on my limited, more recent contact, it doesn't feel like that it feels like we're underrepresented, and it feels like the cards are highly stacked against any representation anytime in the near future. And based on the comments about, this is like, even that that the way to increase the diversity is by sort of eliminating some secession rights, seems a little bizarre, in my opinion.
But you should be aware, Sunny, that our own John Baker from California is on track to become president, I believe. Is it a year or two, Laura?
He's secretary right now, so he would become second vice president, and then first vice president, president-elect, and then president.
He's a treasurer. He's a treasurer now, and it takes at least 2 to 3 years.
You see? So, I mean, Sunny, in a sense, it does seem a bit ridiculous, but it does help once you get onto that board to move quickly rather than have to languish for another 3 or 4 years with these ridiculous titles, So I think it's
I hear you. But what this requires, this is one diversity track, right? So this is like, if we have people who are committed and like that's their goal is to become president of NCARB. I'm more just concerned about the sort of general day-to-day business of the organization and how we can get people who aren't that committed. And I'll bring it back to my own personal experience recently. I was sort of reached out to, and honestly, I think when they reached out to me, I thought that it was because of my membership on the California Architects Board, but I realized afterwards that I was reached out to because I had sort of proactively filled out a survey with NCARB that I get because I'm separately a certificate holder. So I was all excited because I thought, oh my goodness, somebody's, reaching out and trying to include us. And when I got on this like subcommittee, there were about, I don't know, over a quarter of a period of the time, there was like something like more than 40 hours of required like test writing, volunteer hours that were needed, which I couldn't afford to give. And so I had to actually respectfully decline the committee appointment just because it was like there was no way I could run my business and be on this board and be with my family. There honestly wasn't enough time in the day, even if I quit everything else. So there's some kind of wild thresholds for involvement that I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, and maybe this is not my maybe this isn't my area of expertise, but I just wanted to bring up again that there's a diversity problem there.
This is Laura. I think we really have two issues that are related, but one is the diversity in terms of the governance structure of NCARB, but as Sunny's talking about, it's more the issue of how the whole NCARB works as a whole and how the jurisdictions have influence over it. And I think Mike Armstrong talked about that in terms of how the regions are structured. And in Region 6, I think we have 13 members, and we're one of 6 regions, so it does sort of dilute the voice of California. And so, that might be something that the board wants to encourage NCARB to look at to increase California's voice in the organization.
There have been, there have been discussions, just so you guys know, about, because it's the pendulum, right? It swings back and forth over the decade. And one of the ideas that I've heard more recently is the idea of creating more like super regions. Rather than just the 6 that we have, it might turn into only 3, for example, and maybe just 3 swaps up and down. So I don't know, there's all kinds of discussions at any given time about restructuring because some people like the idea of regions and some people do not.
Laura, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that the states, regions that use more of the NCARB services, despite the fact they don't pay more dues, have a lot more influence on NCARB?
I don't know that's the fact that they use more services. I think it's more by region, and in the regions that have fewer members, I think that just gives them a little bit more of a voice in terms of the overall governance of NCARB. But in terms of the services that are administered day to day, I don't feel like any one jurisdiction has a larger voice or say over that. It's more in terms of the governance.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Could you clarify when you say the demographics effect? Are you saying that the fewer the members, the more influence each member has? I'm a little confused.
Right. So our region 6 is the biggest, and I think we have 13 members. But like the New England region, they have fewer members. And so, kind of the central region. I don't know them all offhand, but they have fewer members. And in terms of the way people get elected to the Board of Governors, they work their way up through the regional. There's just fewer people competing for those positions, and I think they're a little bit more homogenous than our region is.
Okay.
Yeah, very well said. It's like the Senate system. We have exactly what we have, and it's just one vote. And here we are with more architects than anybody else, any other state by far. We get one vote, and so that's why you don't see a disparate. What's the word I'm looking for? Influence. There's not a oversized influence because of our size.
That's my key point right there.
I would, this is Nelsa Serrano, I would like to see a kind of a matrix and see where the president came from for the last 15 years in what region, to see whether you're dealing with just middle of America presidents. Because I don't think that there's been one from New York, Maybe we'll have one from California 4 years from now, and some of the states that are the biggest economies in the nation. So I don't know how that can be done.
This is Laura. So Niels, I'll follow up with you on that. We'd be happy to do that. And if you want to expand it to the other officer positions, I can provide that to the board members as a follow-up. Also, it would be great for the members' awareness too. I don't know if this is different from other organizations that you participate in. NCAR pays some of the members of the board of directors. So they get what's considered a stipend for, I think, the top 3 positions on the board.
I know that the president, yeah, it's a big stipend. The president gets $100,000 for the year of service.
I think it's more than that.
Really, maybe they've gotten a raise, but yeah, the last time I checked, it was 100, but maybe it's 150 now, because of the fact that they have to spend about half of their time on NCAR business. It's worthy to note that AIA also has a president that spends about half their time, and they get 0. Just interesting.
Same for CARB as well. They don't get to pay their members.
Surprised. I didn't even know the president get paid. That's unheard of.
You better run for it, Jan.
we need a diversity first.
Okay.
Okay, good conversation. But Shani, I think your point is that just like a political system, the California is too big to just have 2 senators, right? Is that the main idea you have, Shani?
That's my point. We're underrepresented, and the conversation I'd like to have, or is basically just to sort of put that out there, that in these committee meetings that I don't necessarily get to go to, but what is the organization doing to serve our diverse constituency in a way that's fair and equal?
So, John, this is Laura. You could also have the option, if you want, to request NCARB make a presentation to the full board for maybe some of the NCARB staff or anyone at NCARB. That's an option for the board as well, if you would like that.
Good idea. I like that idea, because then Sunny can put the questions on them and really make them understand. I mean, you're considered rank and file, if you will, because you are not, because you're a member of the board makes you it's special, but you're also representing the architects in California and the voice you want. So I think it's a great idea. Let's do that for next year. And to answer your question, and just very, anecdotally and just from memory, we've had presidents from not Las Vegas, Nevada, Louisiana. Yeah. So Nevada, Louisiana, Iowa, New Mexico is coming up next year. So you're absolutely right. Okay, here's the way I look at it. If you want to just hear my observation about what I've seen over these past 8 years or so that I've been watching NCARB vis-a-vis California, okay, is that these are the states that have a chance to finally flex their muscle in the national arena, where California just has to whisper and we're in the national arena. But the people from North Dakota, and Nevada, they don't get that kind of voice. And so NCARB board and NCARB presidency gives them a really weighty position, which I think it means a lot to them. Okay, so that's my observation.
All right, I have seen Pascal's hands again. Pascal, are you meant to speak up?
Yes, sir. I just want to reflect back on something that I had pointed out earlier in another meeting, is that these NCARB boards, this leadership, votes on initiatives that rise from the committee floors. So it's a catch-22, and as Sunny just pointed out, if you can't get on a committee, you can't bring the California voice into the committee to help shape the content of the initiative that eventually will get to the board for voting. So if to get in on the ground level and get a voice up and pushing forward, it's got to be committee work, because if it's not there, it's not collected anywhere else. And basically, when you get to the one state, one vote, that's basically what it is. The 50 some odd jurisdictions, one vote each. We're not an electoral kind of, arrangement, but somehow, some way, it's that committee work. And it seems apparently guys in the Midwest and East have much more time to be on committees than we do out here, because it's a very demanding kind of situation. Takes up an awful lot of time, and detracts from your everyday duties and commitments as an architect and as a person that's involved in family life. So anyway, just wanted out for that.
Okay. Well, certainly very diverse views and voice, literally, and we feel we are satisfied at the moment for this meeting. We can continue conversation at other meetings. And we move on to, oh, by the way, before I move on, I just want to make sure the members, it's okay, you don't have a specific action items or any committees on this subject. Okay. And also, do we need to open to public if they have any comment as well?
Yes, we should go ahead and open for public comment.
Okay. Moderator, we can open for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened the Q&A panel. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," and submit it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator and Mr. Board President. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Finally, we come back to the item H. Laura will give a summary if we need to take any actions on this legislation.
Okay, thank you. No action will be requested today. These are just updates. So the first item is H1, Assembly Bill 2028 by Assemblymember Aguiar Curry. This bill actually, the legislature is adjourned for the year, so we're in the period when the bills that made it to the governor, he has until the end of the month to take action on the bills. AB 2028 did not make it to the governor, so it would need to be reintroduced next year in a new session. It had imposed additional requirements on the Open Meetings Act, in particular about at one point about the posting of materials and making sure they were posted 10 days in advance. So that bill is not going forward, so no further action on that one. The second item is Senate Bill 1474, and this was an omnibus bill by the Senate Business and Professions Committee, and it contained a provision the board previously approved about just clarifying the reinstatement provisions for licenses that were seeking to reinstate to active status. This bill also at one point would have contained the language to allow LATC, Landscape Architects Technical Committee, to implement the fingerprint requirement that the board is going to start on January 1st. But instead, there were some questions from the Department of Justice about that language. So instead, the bill will delay the requirement only for landscape architects for one additional year. So the board will start fingerprinting January 1, and landscape architects will fingerprint 1 year out. And so we'll seek to get that implementation language next year. Any questions?
Quick question. This doesn't have anything to do with the felons, right? The reinstatement of felons?
The fingerprinting provisions?
No, just the whole bill, the 1474.
No, it doesn't.
Does that have, okay, all right. Is that, how is that bill coming along?
It's on the governor's desk.
Oh, okay. So it's moved on to the governor. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. The session was quite condensed this year, and they limited the number of bills that they saw, which means that because there were fewer bills moving, SB 1474 has a lot more provisions in it than it normally would, so it's pretty long, but there are only a couple provisions specific to our board. If there are questions from members, do we want to see if there's any public comment?
That's open to public comment.
This is the moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I will open up the Q&A panel. All right, the question and answer panel is now available. If you'd like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I'm seeing no requests for public comment at this time. Mr. Board President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please close
All
the
right.
Q&A. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Next item, Laura will give a summary of what each of our members served on the NCARB committee.
Okay, thank you. So this was just the standing item that we talked about from our last board meeting to put on, so members could talk about the committees that they serve on, for those who are serving on NCARB committees. I serve on the Member Board Executive Committee, and so we've had 2 meetings as well, and so I'm working on a couple different charges from that committee, one of which is to work with the Professional Conduct Committee to further define and look at how the different jurisdictions define discipline and what type of action boards take, as well as what type of action NCARB would take. This is something that from California I pushed for, because I feel like all the jurisdictions define discipline differently, and while we're encouraged to report our actions to the NCARB disciplinary database, California doesn't report very much because most of our actions we don't consider to be discipline, they're administrative action. But everyone seems to define it a little bit differently. So we're just hoping for some more clarification, which would help in our enforcement processes. And then we're also working on just some more internal stuff about the audit of records of the license records that NCARB does. We would do a quality assurance audit, and we're looking to further refine that. So I think we also have Sylvia and Nielsa and Tian on committees. In Pascal.
Yep. Question first for Laura's report.
Yes.
So just curious, because sometimes when we see disciplinary matters, we get information about the person's record in other states. So you're saying that maybe the information we get could be incomplete or not what we would want to give out because they have either more liberal or more restrictive ways of disclosing things. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not so much, that's pretty much it. It's not so much that it's incomplete, it's just that, like in California, most of our actions are citations, which don't rise to the level of discipline. But the cases that you hear in closed session are the only ones that we'd report. But other states, other jurisdictions report everything to us. They also have, so they have maybe, they just have a different structure. So in terms, some of the actions they report to us, we can't really tell exactly what they are and if they're disciplined, if they're like more of a warning, just because we all use different terminology and we have different abilities, it just kind of makes it a challenge to figure out when we get a report, what exactly to do with it. Is it something that we would want to take action on, or is it, is it necessary for us to?
Sorry, members, I forgot to ask you, should we take a brief break, or you can hold until the closed session?
Oh. How many more items do we have?
I can wait.
Okay, I estimate will be not longer than 50 minutes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question for Laura. Laura, is there a reason we don't get reports monthly or rather quarterly about how many citations have been given out?
It's in, I only provide it quarterly at this point. It's in the board packet and it's also in the next item in the executive officer report. So we could, if the board members would like, I could do a more modified monthly report, or I can solicit feedback on that. But it is in the board packet and I present it quarterly at this point.
Is there, I forget how lengthy it is to report. What does it report on again?
The executive officer report is pretty lengthy. I think it's about 25 pages or so, which is why we stopped producing it monthly. But it has the statistics. We'll have the number of citations we've issued, the number of complaints we've received. It has everything, though. It has the licensing statistics as well as just an update on board operations.
Okay.
The enforcement provisions itself. It'll list like the most common violations, the number of complaints, how long it's taking us to close complaints, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
So Laura or Tian, if you'd like, I can make a very fast a summary of the 4 committees that I'm on. Would that be helpful? Okay.
Verified. 30 seconds.
Sure. 30 seconds. Yeah, really fast. I'm on the Regional Leadership Committee that comprises all of the, I guess, the chairs of the regional committees. So I'm on the, I think some of you know that I'm chair of the West Carb board now. And we hold meetings only, frankly, once a year in person. Used to be once a year in person, and another additional time by phone. That one has been a little bit silent recently. I'm also on the Licensing Advisors Committee, which means that I help with different aspects of licensing for people who have questions in the state of California. And it's not the whole state, it's primarily relegated to my firm and so forth, but I am a resource. The third committee is, of course, Diversity Collaborative Task Force, which is not a committee yet, it is a task force. So they even have a bureaucracy for creating committees. So it's not even quite a committee yet, but it's moving up to task force. And then the last one is called the Policy Advisory Committee. And all we do is our charge is to check on all the resolutions that ever have been done through NCARB and take out certain ones that are no longer relevant, that seem kind of archaic and silly now. And so that's not a major task force, but it's something I'm doing. It's a committee actually, and that's it.
That's good. So good. Thank you for reporting on. I have 2. I'm in on the 2 committees, but with a very clear objective. I'm a firm believer of alternative to forms of education, architecture education. So I'm helping on the certificate alternative review committee, and now this year education committee. So I just play my role, my small contributions to this committee activity. All right. Any other member our committee members want to briefly introduce their role at any cover committees?
Hand up.
Yeah, Pascal?
Yes, sir. I'm also on the Certification Alternatives Review team with Tian. And basically what this group does is reviews credential portfolios compared to the NCARB educational standard for individuals who are seeking NCARB certificates, but have taken alternative pathways to licensure. Training has been completed for that team, and soon the team members will be receiving portfolios for review. The second committee that I'm on is actually a task force, and it's a responsible charge task force. As architecture continues to evolve, the task force is researching how to further define the concept of responsible charge as it relates to practicing architects. Here's a special note, and again, I'm going to point at bringing the California voice to the room. The initial document that was given to the team or the task force to review was titled Summary of Jurisdictional Language on Responsible Control for Architecture. When you got to the state of California, it stated no specific definition of responsible control or responsible charge exists in the state of California, which I quickly refuted and provided relative comment and excerpts from the California Architects Practice Act, as well as from the California Department of State Architect's Office. So yeah, that's where that committee is going. Thank you.
See, so we have to be present. That's your point, Pascal. California has to be
that's my
present.
point. Capitalized, double asterisk, underscored, in red text, bold. You got if you're not, you can't. In order to play the game, you got to be on the field.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank
Nilka,
you.
you want to say something? You're on the committee too, Nilka, right?
Pardon me?
Yes, I am on the diversity committee, and happy to be on it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have item open to public comment.
This is the moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I will go ahead and open the Q&A panel. All right, if you'd like to make a public comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" and submit it to all panelists or displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator, and Mr. Board President, I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please close the
All right.
Q&A panel. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next agenda is Executive Director's report. I assume all our members have read the materials. I only ask Laura to highlight some of the areas that she thinks is of our concerns or need to be discussion here. So that's it, Laura. Take it away.
Thank you. I'll be brief. This is agenda item J. So starting on the report, our next meeting is December 11th. We'll be meeting via teleconference as long as we have the authority under the governor's executive order. As we talked about previously, there'll be the election of officers. So the president will appoint a nominating committee probably next month, and I'll send out an email to all members soliciting interest for that election. The next professional qualifications committee meeting, as we talked about, is October 30th, and the regulatory and enforcement committee will meet November 5th. We don't have a date for communications. Then just to highlight, we have on the next page the updated numbers on our license, the number of licensees renewing online. About 30% of them are renewing online at this point. We published our latest newsletter, and then going forward, we will also include content from LATC in the newsletter in each edition. Just to mention, under personnel, we've had a few hirings, as well as we brought on board a new manager, Jane Kreidler, over the administration unit. In our communications committee, staff person Colleen Galvin has been out on loan. We had to loan a staff person to contact tracing at the state level for COVID-19, so she's on that assignment. There's an update on our regulations, and then going on to page 5, we have our statistics on the exam, on the national exam, the ARE. You can tell for the fourth quarter of 18-19, and then into particularly that last quarter, there were very few divisions administered because of the closure of test centers. So statistics are based on a considerably smaller number of exams administered. And then we have the year-to-year comparison, and then going on page 6, we have the CSE data. And starting under that, we have the enforcement program update, which will list all the enforcement actions by name there, which are posted on our website. And then disciplinary actions on page 13. And then starting on page 14, we have the statistics on the number of complaints. You can see in fiscal year 19-20, we received quite a increase in the number of complaints from the prior year, which resulted then in more actions across the board, including more citations, as well as more letters of advisement. On page 15, we have the types of complaints received, and then also the most common violations are highlighted and then broken down in a chart on page 16. Are there any questions from members at this point?
Laura.
So Tian, we could do public comment if you want now. We also have the next.
No, I have a comment for you. So there is what do you call the online proctoring software, NCORP is already adopted, right? So do you have any updates for our members? In other words, then you do not need to go to a location to take your exam anymore. You can take from your home.
Yes. So NCORP has been sending out some updates, and I thought that maybe I would present this at the next board meeting because they'll have had it in place. But they're looking at doing remote proctoring for the exam. So candidates would have the ability to take it from their home or office under very strict conditions prescribed by NCORP. You would need pre-approval of your system and your environment, as well as you would use NCORP software when you're taking the exam. And so they're going to make some other changes to the structure of the exam for candidates that are taking it that way. But that is something that both the Landscape Architects Association, they're more ahead and have done a pilot project on this, but something NCARB will be rolling out a little bit later this year which seems like it'll be great for candidates, particularly due to COVID-19 closures, but also just for people who don't have the easy ability to get into the test center. So there will, NCARB is going to be changing test vendors to more easily accommodate this, and they'll be switching to the same vendor that we use for our California supplemental exam. So when we have a little bit more information, I'll put it on the next board agenda, but can also send out an update in between. So I think that's really good for candidates.
Next board agenda will be fine. That's a very good overview. Thank you, Lauren. Let's open to public comment. Any members? I don't see any hands raised. Okay. Let's open to public comment.
All right, this is the moderator. I will go ahead and open the Q&A panel. So if you would like to make a public comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I would like to ask Trish Rodriguez give us an update on Oapc report. They had just a meeting not long ago.
Thank you, Tian. LATC held its meeting on September 4th via WebEx. In attendance was LATC liaison Tian Feng. At the meeting, I announced that Mark Truscott, LATC chair at that time, his term ended on June 1st, and he had since been serving in his grace period, which recently ended. So the governor appointed position is vacant, and during the meeting, Vice Chair Roshinsky assumed the position of the chair, and in December, elections will be held for both the chair and vice chair positions. During the program manager's update portion of the meeting, I went into detail providing updates on our various regulation packages. There is one reg package that has come to the board's public comment sessions, and I just wanted to provide an update now where we are with CCR section 2615, form of examinations, and 2620, education and training credits. The update that was provided is that this package was originally published for public notice by OAL in 2016. However, after receiving substantial public comment, additional research was necessary, and the rulemaking file was withdrawn in 2017 due to insufficient time to finalize the proposal within the one-year deadline imposed by Government Code Section 11346.4. The Education Experience Subcommittee was appointed to further discuss expanding initial pathways to licensure. Proposed regulatory language was approved by the board in September 2018 and submitted to DCA Legal Affairs for preview in February 2019. DCA Legal concluded its preview in June of 2019 and began the initial analysis. During this period, the Department of Finance made changes to what information is required, and DCA is working on updating and providing the requested information. Once this is complete and signed off by the director and agency, the next steps will be submitted to the Office of Administrative Law, published for public notice, and a 45-day public comment period. This rulemaking file is prioritized at the top of the other rulemaking files currently in process with legal. Additionally, the members requested a chart of sorts, a visual aid to see the progress of the various reg packages that was presented at the meeting and will be included in future program manager reports. So if there are no questions on any of our regulations, we did have a presentation from the Council of Landscape Architectural Registration Boards. Both Matt Miller, Chief Executive Officer of CLARB, and Veronica Meadows, Senior Director of CLARB, presented an overview of proposed changes to uniform standards across member boards, including education and experience requirements, a uniform application, and initiation of the licensure process for CLARB versus member board jurisdictions. No action was taken on this item, and LATC is following the proposed changes as CLARB proceeds with its initiative. CLARB is also, we reviewed their annual meeting agenda. On the agenda is their 2021 job task analysis. LATC is also undergoing a similar occupational analysis at this time. As part of the analysis, the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services will conduct a linkage study between the recent occupational analysis and CLARB's job task analysis once it is completed. We estimate this to be in early 2021. The committee also voted on the CLARB's election ballot for Board of Directors and Leadership Advisory Council. LATC member Andrew Bowden was voted as a designated member to attend the CLARB annual meeting. Member Patricia Trout also attended the CLARB annual meeting held virtually on September 10th, along with myself and Executive Officer Laura Zuniga. We had a second presentation from the State Water Resources Control Board. Brandon Rosenboom, Water Resources Control Engineer, provided a presentation on the Qualified Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, developer certification requirements, which is issued by the State Water Resources Control Board. In addition to providing information on QSD practitioner responsibilities and the training program, the presentation focused on California landscape architects, since they are one of the acceptable underlying certifications for the QSD, which can be earned through completion of the QSD training course and exam. He shared that the Water Resources Control Board is in the process of drafting a new construction stormwater general permit. The LATC will invite him to return and provide an update on any changes made to the QSD practitioner roles as a result of the new permit. I provided an update on the 2 interdepartmental contracts for continued exam development of the California supplemental exam and the occupational analysis linkage study. I'm going to skip K for now because that is the second item on the agenda. One of the items that LATC has been working on is updating our logo. We're working with Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Publications Design and Editing. At this meeting, they narrowed down 12 original drafts that were presented down to 2 or 3, and we provided that feedback back to Publications Design and Editing, and hopefully we'll be able to make a determination on our final logo at our meeting in December. And then on item K, so the LATC has a strategic plan objective to educate the different jurisdictional agencies about landscape architectural licensure and its regulatory scope of practice to allow licensees to perform duties prescribed within its regulation. This came about due to issues that some practitioners were having getting their stamp approved in certain jurisdictions. So as one of the solutions that was identified to help educate the different jurisdictions was updating the section in the board's guide to help clarify what the landscape architect license would allow. So presented in the packet in blue underlined text is the proposed changes to that section. During our discussion, DCA Legal Counsel Tara Welch also made recommendations to strike certain portions within question number 5. You'll see those also in blue, but in strikeout. And so what the committee is requesting for at this meeting is board approval for the proposed changes to the guide. And that concludes my update.
Any questions for Trish?
No questions, but I'll move on the action that she requested, which is to approve the changes. As noted.
Yota seconded. Any discussions before we call the roll? Yota, go ahead.
Public comment happened?
Oh, public comment. Please open up to Oh, by the way, before we open, I like mentioning that Laura already mentioned, talk about the next meeting dates. And Laura, do we need to have a separate line item on the future meeting dates? If not, I put two together for public comment.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll open public comment for agenda item K and L.
All right, this is the moderator. I'll go ahead and open the Q&A panel. If you would like to make a public comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" in the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to go ahead and close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hi, members. We are 12:05. I suggest we take 25 minutes break and come back.
We have to vote, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. We did not vote. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Tian Feng,
Aye.
Nelson Serrano, aye. Malcolm Brett Platzer. Brett?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Pascual Gutierrez?
Yes, I need to take a step back because not sure what we're voting on. Items K and L requires no action.
This is for the LATC's proposed revisions to the building official guide, just on the section relating to landscape architects, to expand it a little bit further.
Understood. My vote is aye. Or yes.
Thank you. Ronald Jones?
Aye.
Sylvia Kwan? Sylvia?
Aye.
Thank you. Ebony Lewis?
Aye.
Robert Perman?
Aye.
Charles Ward?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Members, you think 23 minutes break will be sufficient for you? I hear no objections. Okay, we will resume our meeting for closed session at 12:30. But for public who are here, that we want to announce there will be no business items when we resume the meeting after the closed session.